And welcome to Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast. We are your hosts, Cody Norman
and Logan Frye, paralysis recovery specialist at the Perfect Step, also known as TPS.
We are not doctors and are not prescribing anything, as this podcast is for informational purposes and should not be considered legal advice.
We are, however, sharing knowledge and experience that we have gained from working for years with clients in the paralysis community.
The guests on this podcast will include either experts in their respective fields or individuals sharing their unique experiences with paralysis.
Suggestions and advice that we share may affect each person differently, as not one injury or diagnosis is the exact same.
We are hopeful that the outreach of this podcast will allow us to give help and guidance for individuals suffering from paralysis.
We understand that this spread of knowledge is important and takes an entire community coming together.
Because of this, we would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors who have made this possible.
You're a business owner in the retail, restaurant, hospitality, or petroleum industry. You have ambitious plans for multi-site remodels, refreshing your brand, and integrating the latest technology, but you need a partner you can trust to bring those visions to life. Enter Apex Imaging Services. With a legacy dating back to 1949, we've been at the forefront of innovation and transformation for over 7 decades. From licensed general contracting in 48 states to cutting-edge tech solutions, we've got you covered. Our services include everything from interior and exterior refreshes, open and closed remodels, and technology integrations, to 3D virtual tours, data analytics, and cloud security for Fortune 500 companies. But it's not just about what we do, it's how we do it. We're dedicated to quality, value, and efficiency. We listen to your needs, tailor solutions to your goals, and deliver results on time and on budget. So whether you're planning your next remodel, seeking to enhance your brand, or embracing the digital age, Apex Imaging Services is your partner for success. Visit apeximagingservices.com to learn more. Apex Imaging Services, your vision, our expertise. The Be Perfect Foundation is not just a name, it's a promise. A promise to individuals living with paralysis that they are not alone in their journey. Founded by Hal Hargrave Jr. in 2007, after his own life-altering accident, we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization dedicated to providing direct financial and emotional aid. Inspired by a quote from the movie Friday Night Lights, we believe that being perfect is about doing everything you can, especially for yourself, your family, and your friends. With nearly $10 million raised and a 100% volunteer staff, your support goes directly to those in need. We assist with medical supplies, wheelchairs, home adaptations, and exercise-based therapy programs. Our board of directors receives no salary, ensuring that almost every dollar donated makes a real impact. Visit BePerfectFoundation.org to donate or learn how you can get involved. The Be Perfect Foundation, changing perceptions daily. Welcome to The Perfect Step, a beacon of hope for those living with paralysis. We're not just another recovery program, we're pioneers in exercise-based recovery, transforming lives every day. Our mission is clear: to provide an improved quality of life through intense exercise-based recovery, education, research, and development. We treat conditions such as spinal cord injury, stroke, Parkinson's, and more. What sets us apart? Our clients often experience an improved level of function, sometimes even below their entry level. Imagine the possibilities when exercise is medicine. We're wheelchair-free, focusing on load-bearing activities to enhance function, bone density, muscle mass, sensation, and circulation. And it doesn't stop there. Our clients often reduce their medications and complications. But we're not just a program. We're a community of support. You'll meet peers who understand your journey, along with specialists dedicated to your recovery. Visit theperfectstep.com today and take the first step toward hope, health, and healing. The Perfect Step, where recovery begins.
Welcome back to episode 4 of Pathways to Healing. On this episode, we interview Adrain Valenzuela. Adrian is a T6 paraplegic who was injured in a jockey accident. He has been injured for over 6 years and also has been a client at the Perfect Step for 5.
Adrian will speak about personal experiences, his background, adaptive clothing and fashion, mental health while living with paralysis, and he'll speak on a lot of different stories that you don't want to miss. Stay tuned on Adrian's Pathways to Healing. Welcome back, Pathways to Healing. What's up, Adrian? How's it going today, man?
What's happening, guys?
Good,
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, hey, so we wanted to kind of see a little bit about your background. You know, you've been at TPS for how many years now?
Man, I'd say it's coming up on my 6 years of being paralyzed, so it's going to be around 6 years.
6 years,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, so it was a few months after you got injured, correct, that you came into TPS and that you became a client?
Pretty much. I mean, I think the week after I got back, I came to Perfect Step. So I didn't waste any time. I spent 2 months in Colorado. And then when I came back from Colorado, I came right here because everyone was telling me come here, and haven't looked back since.
You're at Craig.
Yeah, I was at Craig. Yeah.
How's
Yeah.
that experience?
Craig was great. Craig was great in the inpatient. It really was a place where you, when you have something like this happen, I've seen a lot of people just get sent straight out of the hospital or to other places that are not as good as Craig. And not only is community important, but like getting a good foundation to when you go out into the real world, which Craig really makes a big point of in the aspects of everything, socializing, staying healthy, just doing things comfortably, and all that. It was a blessing that I got to send over there.
That's awesome. You say like a firm foundation. What are parts of those foundations that you feel like helped you to kind of figure things out at first?
I mean, just living in general. Like, when this happens, you literally have to learn how to eat. You have to learn how to put on clothes again. I remember the first time I ate after this, I couldn't really hold myself up. It was kind of crazy. I was like, I gotta learn how to eat again. Like, no way. And simple things like that. They kind of almost give you like a test run. They'll send you out like every week into like a grocery store, or a restaurant, or a little trip, this and that, so you can get used to being outside, because there's a difference of doing stuff in a hospital or an inpatient care or whatever than to actually doing stuff in outside and run into real problems. When I was out in Craig, I remember I went to the train station once. I flipped out of my chair like a pancake, and everyone started freaking out. My dad was there. He was like, "You were flipped out." I'm like, "Listen, it's gonna happen in real life. Might as well do it now when we got people, to help us."
Yeah.
So overall, that foundation is just kind of getting used to just living life again, just doing everything. So yeah.
What was your main takeaway or the biggest thing you learned while at Craig? So where did you start? What was your independence like when you got to Craig, and what was it like when you left?
Oh man, if I didn't go to Craig, it would have been so hard to like come out to the real world. Craig really, like I said, they send you out there, and when you're in a wheelchair, you really already enough like fighting to kind of put yourself out in the real world and fit in where you can, this and that, especially when there's a lot of situations that you'll run into problems that'll go against you. You just got to learn just to do it, just to go, just kind of just put yourself in there and just see what happens. A lot of stuff in a wheelchair is very trial and error. Almost everything in a wheelchair is really trial and error. And if you don't put yourself in a trial, when the error comes, because a lot of it's not if, it's when, you're going to have a real bad time. Real bad time. So if you go put yourself out, this and that, a lot of the things that you get scared of, like going out to the restaurant. Like, I remember the first time I went out to a restaurant, it was like a week after I was in Craig, and I had people staring. And my dad was there, and he's like, obviously noticed it too. And he's like, "You good?" I'm like, "Listen, I expected it." And some people expect it, some people don't. At the end of the day, that's something you're gonna have to deal with, because even when I expected it, it was still something new. And something new like that, even though the first time I was like, whatever, like eventually you kind of start, thinking about it, this and that. And it's a new idea introduced to your brain. Even if it's new, good or bad, you're going to have to address it. And, addressing it is how you'll get to move forward. So even something as small as that, which wasn't really that much of a big deal, was something that I had to address. And then later on, when like I have people look, and then I'd hear something, and I'd be like, alrighty, well, at least I have the look part now. Now I can move on to, and this and that. So it's just basically getting accustomed to things, getting accustomed to just living life again, which is, there's no book for it, there's no written code, this and that. And it's different for everyone. That's the hard part. Even someone with the same level as me could have a complete different experience, complete different ways of having to think about it and how to address it. So it's basically just experiencing things. That's all it is.
Yeah. That's great oversight. That's fantastic oversight, especially speaking on Craig being the foundation. and then now you're going through the development. You're still
Yes.
continuing every day of like your continuous recovery.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's tell us a little bit. Is that a reason why you come to TPS, and what is the main factor of that?
I mean, I'll be honest. I couldn't imagine my life without purpose time. It's crazy. When something like this happens to you, there's obviously a need for community, a need for action in general, right? There's no place I've ever been to like Perfect Step, even at Craig. I'll say that. Not only getting like treating yourself well physically, that goes along in hand mentally. But when you're coming to a place like this, you're getting used to seeing other people in the same situation. You're getting used to your own situation because you're dealing with it. You're addressing the situation at hand. And a special place like this, you could go out and work out with personal trainers that are like, well, this muscle doesn't work, but this muscle works. So you can, here it's curated to people like us. In a world where very, 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 very little is curated to people like us. I've been to other places that are specialized in paralysis and spinal cord injury, and people are going to say I'm biased because I come here, but you guys are the best place. I've seen them all. I've been to them all, this and that, they can come and try if they want.
We appreciate that.
And I don't get paid to say that.
Yeah, you don't. But we do very much appreciate that. Why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory into your life and how you had that change of going from being able-bodied into chair? Yeah,
so I used to be a professional racehorse jockey. I grew up racing horses. My dad trained horses. My brother trained horses. My grandpa trained horses. All my grandpa's brothers became jockeys. The only reason my grandpa didn't because he was too big. One of his brothers was the first Latino to win a Kentucky Derby. I had a cousin who was one of the greatest jockeys of all time. Same thing with my dad's brother. So it was in my bloodline. And what's funny is that like growing up, like as a kid, I wanted to do it. But when I got to my teen years, I got more into MMA. And I was like, no, I want to be a fighter. And when I graduated high school, I needed a job. And my dad was like, well, you can work at the racetrack. Knowing, he had the whole thing planned set up. He's like, no, you're not going to do fighting. You're going to be a jockey. So I started working at the racetrack, fell in love with it. And after a couple years of, working around horses, finding, the race riding and everything, started riding professional races. And part of being a jockey is that you have to get to know the horse. So the way you do that is that in the mornings before the races, from 5 to 10 a.m., the horses train. They train in the mornings because it's colder, so they don't train out in the heat later. And that's when a jockey can get the opportunity to go on a horse that they might ride in the future to almost get like a test ride. Learn its habits, see how well he goes, what he likes, what he doesn't like. And that's called a workout. It's basically a time trial, almost like a practice race, if you will. And so I would do a lot of that for my dad because also it gives the horses a workout. And what's funny is that the day this accident happened is that I was supposed to go to Vegas 3 days after, and it was on a Sunday, which I didn't usually work Sundays. It was my day off, but my dad had sent horses to Santa Anita racetrack, which usually we would be at Los Alamitos racetrack. And he needed someone to ride him. So he's like, you're going to go do it, because you're my son, free labor. So I would usually get on like 10 horses a day. This day I only had to get on 2. I was like, cool, chill, go in, get my money, get out, have breakfast, this and that. Get on the first horse, went great, real smooth. Track was a little heavy. I was like, okay, nothing crazy, nothing, weird. Get on the second horse. We start going out. He's chilling. So we start going. We make it around the turn. And right before we get to the finish line, we just both go down. And we both go down. And for something like that, it happens in a split second. There's no thinking. So you're just, I tumbled. And I was rolling, ended up on my back. And what had happened is that the horse did something called clipping heels, where their legs move like this because they got the 4 legs, and his back heel was clipping on the front leg. They wear wraps, so he was clipping on the wraps, and every clip was tearing the wraps until it came undone. And going 40 miles an hour, when wraps come undone like that, it wraps around the legs. He tripped really hard. Thank God the horse is okay. He's great. He's still alive, kicking. He's doing better than, physically better than me, this and that. But I ended up on the ground on my back, and when I tried getting up, I just couldn't move. And when I felt for my stomach, I felt for my legs, it felt like I was grabbing like prime rib steaks, like, fresh off the cutting block. It felt like meat. And when I say that, I mean like, when you touch something and you touch your legs, you can feel your leg getting touched by your hand. Right. I didn't feel my leg touch my hand. I was like, oh no, and riding horses is something where my dad told me it's not if, it's when. It's not if something bad happens, it's when. It's just a matter of how bad it happens. And I had plenty falls before this. I had this and that. I had a hook stabbed through my armpit once because of a horse, And when this happened, I knew immediately it was just something different. I was just like, oh, this is not good. I've had the wind, get knocked out of me, not being able to move, but this is I wanted to move, and I couldn't. That was when I was like, ooh. I knew immediately. I already knew what it was. It was just a matter of getting to the doctor and confirming it. And then I got to the hospital, this and that, and they confirmed it. And I was like, well, now you got to start living another life, So that happened on March 31st, 2018. It's coming up on around 6 years. And, it's been a crazy ride since then. Yeah.
Your life day is coming up.
My life day is coming up. We got to do something to celebrate it, huh?
That's right. Wow. Thanks for telling that story, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
it's very touching. When it all happened, was there an ambulance on site that took you, or did you get airlifted out, or how did that?
No, they have an ambulance on site at all times at a racetrack. It's the only sport where I have an ambulance follow you during the actual races. And in the mornings they have an ambulance, just sitting there, just waiting, just in case something happens. So when I was on the ground, what was crazy is that I knew exactly where I was. I knew I was right in front of the finish line, and on the direct path where all the horses come, because when you're training on the track, you could be a little bit off the inside rail. You could be, but if you're going fast, you're on the inside rail, and that's where I was hanging. So I was like, I gotta get out of here before I get run over, because if someone's going fast and they're not paying attention, I could get run over. So that was a whole part when I started trying to move. I was like, I need to get out of here. Because I've had it happen before where I fell at that part, and I've had horses almost run me over. So I was like, oh no, I need to get out. And when I couldn't, I was like, now we're stuck here. And so what they do is that they, when an accident like that happens, they clear all the horses out. The horses get off the track, and then they let the ambulance on. So make sure nothing, another guy doesn't fall off a horse, this and that. Ambulance came. And what's funny is that, how I told you guys that day was supposed to be a chill day, Sunday, this and that. I wore my favorite shirt that day. My favorite shirt. And amongst the whole accident happening, me being paralyzed, this and that, the paramedics come and they're like, can you take off your shirt? I'm like, I can't get up, man. And he's like, we're going to have to cut through it. And I'm like, oh, my favorite shirt, please. I literally told him, I'm like, man, this is my favorite shirt. Can you please? There's no other way, man. We got it. So in that moment of hysteria and this and that happening, for about 3 seconds, I was like, not my shirt, man. My shirt became my biggest priority. And then he cut the shirt. I was like, well, back to being paralyzed, So, it's funny how things work like that,
What was his shirt? What was so special about
it? Oh, man.
Yeah. What's the story on the shirt?
It's one of those shirts, man, where, you put it on, if a chick sees you, they're like, ooh, okay. It's it fit right on the biceps, this and that. This is when I was, super fit. Fit good on the body. It just made me look good. I was like, oh, man. And it was, a UFC shirt, one of my favorite UFC fighters. And it was, a shirt that you couldn't easily get. So I was like, oh, man, I got this shirt. And, they had to cut through it. I ended up actually finding the shirt after my accident, someone else had a different, shirt, and I bought it off them, but it was a smaller size. So I was like, it's just not the same,
You mentioned the story about your shirt. adaptive clothing and fashion is something that you're a big
Yeah.
proponent of, and it's obvious with the outfit that you got on, looking good. Can you talk a little bit about your fashion sense and how it changed from before to after the accident?
Yeah, man, you're gonna make me blush. Yeah, so I've always been big on fashion. My dad, especially when you're working in a place like horse racing, you're working with people with a lot of money, this and that. So my dad always told me, is like, listen, you gotta present yourself really well, and when people look good, people notice. Now, when I came in here, you guys were like, "Woo, this and that," he's dressed up. I'm like, yeah,
Nice shoes.
yeah, nice shoes. This and that. They're not getting increased today, So I've always grown up, just interested in clothes because it definitely does have an effect when people see you. It's really the first impression when people see you. I've even in the wheelchair, I've like had people notice like, oh man, you're dressed good, this and that. Before, when usually you're in a situation when people are like, they see the wheelchair first, So clothes can be something. I always tell, especially guys in wheelchairs, I'm like, just dress nice, just dress good, man. Like, trust me, it'll work out good for you. If you dress like, if you get that one fit where you're really like, and you can feel it. When you dress nice, you can feel it, and it can change the whole dynamic of everything. I've been in places where I've talked to important people, like where it's gotten me like opportunities in my acting career, this and that, where the conversation started off me dressing nice, like, oh man, I like your jacket. Where you get it from? Oh, your shoes are so cool, this and that. I'm like, I know my shoes are cool. I came prepared. You think I didn't know, But
Big
yeah.
shoe guy.
Huh?
Big shoe guy.
Big shoe. Oh man,
Yes,
a little too big. Yeah, surprisingly when I can't walk, but but yeah, clothing. I mean, after the accident, I became very especially insecure about like my clothing because sitting down is different than standing up. Shirts sit differently, everything sits differently almost. Like this, like I have to stuff it in the back right here. That's a different thing. Jackets are hard for me to wear. And when you're have something like this happen, you're already starting to get insecurities off of everything, right? And clothes for me was like a way to ball out, be nice, this and that. And after the accident, I was like, man, not even. I was like, no, it's got to be a way. So start learning how to dress. What kind of garments are better for you, what kind of fabrics work better with your body. Like, man, I have like a whole brand that I know that I'm like, if I buy stuff from them, it's gonna fit. It's gonna fit really nice, and it's a way to bring up your confidence. It's a way to make yourself feel good, especially when you're like fresh off of this. I remember the first couple times I felt good in the wheelchair was when I had new Jordans. I remember when I was in Colorado, I had bought these pairs of Jordans that were a collab with Space Jam. And I just like the way they look. I was like, I haven't watched Space Jam in a minute, but those Jordans look good, And I felt good, and I was like, oh man, like you can feel good in a wheelchair, It was something, like I hadn't felt in a minute. So yeah, it's definitely. I mean, for me, like I said, it's been something I grew up with, very, interested in. So it was important for me to get comfortable with that too in a wheelchair.
Do you have any brand recommendations for people who are new to the space?
Yeah. So I might be a little bougie, some stuff are expensive, this and that. I like to save my money to buy myself stuff nice. Represent Clothes, a great brand. Expensive, not cheap, but it is worth the buck that you're paying for. There's another brand catered to wheelchairs that are out of Germany called Rolletex, and they make jeans for people in wheelchairs. And everyone in wheelchairs that's gonna watch this is gonna know that jeans are. I mean, they're tough. They're the B word. They're that. Because every time you transfer, they ride down. They make the jeans where it has extra space on the bottom, and it almost kind of like sees up, so it cups up to your back, and then it has a elastic waistband, so it fits. It stays there. When I found out about that brand, I was like, hallelujah! Like all my problems are over. Like throw me anything, God, I'll take it. Because jeans are really like the amount of people I've heard like complain about jeans in a wheelchair is like everyone. And I'm like, I got the solution for you. So Rolletex UK. They're based out of Berlin in Germany, but and they're not cheap either. I mean, they run around like $100. I mean, jeans aren't cheap in general, but they're worth it. I mean, I bought a pair when I first got paralyzed around 6 years ago. I still wear the same pair. So yeah, Rolletex. Look them up.
I always see the shoes with the zips too. Do you have any of those? Is that also Rolletex, or is that a different?
No, I've run into different companies that just kind of do it and more for like a fashion statement kind of thing. But I'm like it's functional for me. Any brands that have, I mean, Nike's. I know Nike and Adidas really work towards like getting more adaptive clothing. Tommy Hilfiger also too has like its own adaptive line that I heard is great. You know, especially for quads that have trouble doing stuff with their hands. They have like Velcro stuff. You know, shoes in general, I'm lucky I can use my hands, put on my own shoes, this and that. But like definitely more like athletic wear can kind of cater to people in wheelchairs because it's just easier to put on, this and that. You know, I'm the kind of guy that's like, if I wear athletic wear, I'm also going to wear boots. And even if it's hard to put on, you know, so sometimes you can go to a tailor, you can get a zipper in your boots or whatever. You know, you can get a lot of stuff modified at a tailor actually, if which I didn't know before until I started going. I was like, can you change this? Can you change that? Like, so there was a point I was like coming in every week. I was like, change this. They're like, man, like we're not done with the last one, and I'm like, you gotta do this. I got a date on like Friday, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, the possibilities are really endless in that stuff. You know, I mean, it's just gotta look for it, and like, man. Before like I knew about any of that stuff, like I was just wearing like whatever, just to wear whatever, and it didn't look good, and I was like, no, something's got to change. So yeah, man, just go out and just look for stuff.
I love it. Yeah, you said dating, you know, during that, and talking about wearing, you know, nice clothes that you feel good in, that you want to look good in while going on a date.
Yeah.
You know, do you feel like dating shifted or been the same or changed since, you know, dealing with the spinal cord injury?
It's changed a lot. It's changed a lot. And you know, there's obviously gonna be that thing where, oh, you're a guy in a wheelchair. I've also told this to many guys where I'm like, I've had more girls approach me after the wheelchair than before, because you know you get curious about it, this and that, It's really how you handle it, and dating already isn't easy, and especially in a place like Los Angeles where everyone's just hustling, bustle, this and that. You know, I think a lot of guys in wheelchairs, I can speak from guys because I'm a guy. It's very easy to get in your head. And I spent a long time being very insecure about the whole wheelchair situation, especially in the dating thing. Because in the dating thing, you get very vulnerable. And if it goes a certain way, you know, you gotta do things where you're like, oh man, I don't know if I want to do that. You know, and it's not easy. It's very you gotta be kind to yourself in that kind of aspect when it can be very, very rough. Because I have had like times where girls have not continued with me because I've been in a wheelchair, and I've vocalized it and I've said it like, yeah, like the situation's just, it's just different for me. It's hard. It's whatever. Wait, teach their own. You know, it's gonna happen. I expect it to happen, but when it really does happen, then you know, it did sting. I was like, oh man. I mean, I remember for a while I didn't date for like a year because I had a girl kind of just go sideways. And it's funny, like she didn't want to say it at first, and I was like, I know you're hiding something. I'm gonna get it out of you. And eventually it did. And I was like, listen, you can be upfront with me, this and that. And it did really mess me up. I was like, everything that I had feared about the wheelchair getting away had been confirmed from her. But it didn't mean that everything that I feared was right. It just mean I ran into the wrong person. I was like, oh, you're not ready for this, you know? Which, like I said, to each their own. But to date in a wheelchair, I mean, it's like I said, dating's hard in general. Like everyone's dating, you know, this and that. And if anything, it can become a superpower. It can become a thing, like the amount of like how you can use it I'm cracking jokes. You guys see me here. I'm cracking jokes all the time. Like, you don't think I use that with girls too? Man, at the bar, like it seems like a comedy club in the corner because of me, and it works. It works. I get good results, this and that. I've also had girls tell me like, oh, I feel more comfortable with you because you don't seem like a physical threat, which I'm like, yeah, I'm not. Like, I would never be to a girl, but I didn't even think of something like that until someone told me, which I was like, what? Like, that's weird. Um, but yeah, dating, in the chairs, it's a big topic for a lot of guys because it's very scary. And it's like, I was with someone when this happened to me, and I was in a relationship that was very toxic when this happened to me. And I stuck with it when it happened, right? And it ended very quickly after this, which it broke my heart. This and that, I was a young, dumb 21-year-old kid. I didn't know any better. And my dad was like, after I told my dad everything, he's like, "Why would you want to be with a girl like that? It would just ruin your life." I'm like, I had someone in my corner though. I told him that. I was like, I had someone in my corner. Just the fact that I had someone in my corner, it felt good, even if it was a bad situation. In hindsight, God bless that, this and that, because I'm better off. But it's very, very, very easy to feel like when this happens to you, that's like completely out the window. Like, oh no, no more dating, no more this and that. When in the opposite, like you see guys like Hal, you see guys like Mike Young, like they're like, you're like, what? You're doing that. I want to do that. And it's like everything in a wheelchair. I always say a wheelchair is like a full-time job, because it really is. You got to address a lot of things. It's just a matter of just addressing the things in that. And most of it's just insecurities, When you address the insecurities about being in a wheelchair and dating, like, oh, what's sex going to be like? What's, I've had situations where the girl's sitting on a high table, high chair, like on a table, and I'm like low here, and I'm like looking at her like her legs. And I'm like, no, get down here. Like, or even at the point where like I can talk, like here, this and that, and it's gone great. I've had a lot of guys say like the physical aspect, like, getting to like hug someone, this and that, it's different. But I'm like, listen, just go for, like, you're not gonna learn how to do it until you do it. Like if you're a quad and you can't, like this and that, you're gonna have like, hey, come here, give me a hug, this and that, whatever. It's the same thing like with everything I say. It's trial and error. So until you go put yourself out in that situation, in the fire, this and that, you're gonna get burned a little, but once you cross that, then it's just, then it's just like playing a game at this point, So,
Something you touched on was how after the experience, you've had actually more people come up to you than, you go up to them.
Mhm.
That's, I think, a lot of the fact that you do go out there, right?
Yes.
In order for that to happen, you have to put yourself out there, and you've had to, go through the bad experiences too.
Yeah, I mean, you can't hit a home run if you're not playing the game,
That's right.
You got to play the game to even have a chance, And that's one thing I always tell guys, like, listen, just go out and just live life. Like, obviously things are going to be different. You're not going to be able to do things the same as you did before. And that's what a lot of people, when they have something like this happen, that's what they have in their head, is that, oh man, I can't do it the same as before, so why should I even do it? Well, you might end up liking it. It might end up being fun. Like I met a guy in a wheelchair where he was kind of like me, where he liked going partying a lot before he was in a wheelchair. And he was like, man, do you go to clubs? I'm like, I go every weekend, this and that. Like, it's fine. Like, they're not going to deny you because you're in a wheelchair. If anything, sometimes they want to help you. Oh, well, how's talking to the people? And it's like, well, how do you talk to people right now? How to this and that. It's the same thing. It's and when you first go out there, what's funny is that a lot of newer people in wheelchairs, when they talk to me about stuff like that, and then when they actually do it, they always come back to oh my God, it was so fun. It was so fun. I was just like, I told you it was going to be fun, and I don't blame them. It's not easy. It's not easy. I'm lucky, very, very lucky, that I had such good people around me. My family, my friends, they all really pushed me, this. As soon as I got back from Colorado, my friends were like, when are we going out? When are we going? We want to see you. We're going to go pick you up. Because I couldn't drive. Like, we'll go pick you up. We'll lift you in the car. I had my friend, like, fireman carry me in there one time. I was like, gonna do it, we're gonna do it. You know, so
That's awesome.
yeah, having good people around you is very important. You know.
One of the aspects of being able to put yourself back out there is, I think, having a positive mindset,
Mhm.
right? The mental health aspect of getting life
Yes.
down a chair is huge. Can you talk a little bit
Oh
about
man,
your
can
perspective with that?
I? Yeah, I mean, what's funny is that before I was in this wheelchair, I'll say it like when people would tell me they had anxiety or this or depression, I was just like, I just can't understand that. Like, I couldn't. It wasn't something that I could comprehend. After this, whew, I was like, no, now I know what they're talking about. Now I know what's going on. Of course, it's almost inevitable when something like this happens to deal with issues like that. It's gonna happen. You know, whether I've seen people try to hide it, I've seen people, be open about it. It's all the same. And how could it not? How could it not? I remember I had a conversation with my mom one time where she was like, "Hey, like, did you ever think about suicide when this happened?" I was like, "Yeah," and I didn't ever tell like my parents or anyone voluntary out of that because I didn't want to have them worry. But I had to be honest with her. I was like, "Yeah, like how could you?" And she started crying. She was like, "I'm just so sorry." I'm like, "Listen, mom, how could I not though? How could you not? It's not you know uncommon for a thought like that, because of something like this, you know." Now I was like, you should be worried if I didn't address it, but I addressed it. I made it a point to address it. I spent around 2 years like being depressed, I gained anxiety. I had a lot of depression. I was talking to Jared the other day. I was like, there was a point where I couldn't say more than 2 sentences to people. I would count every time I was out in public. I couldn't say more than 2 sentences because the anxiety would get to me. I'd be in my head, this and that. And I just didn't treat myself well. I talked about earlier about how treating yourself physically well goes hand in hand with the mentality, which is true. A place like this helped me a lot. Also, with that, you really, really gotta attack like the mental aspect of it, like full on. You know, how should I put it? You gotta be nice to yourself. That's the one thing I always tell people. You gotta be nice to yourself. You gotta respect yourself. You gotta treat yourself like how you're, especially in a situation like this. You gotta. I thought of it at one point. I was like, well, if my friend was going through this, how would I be talking to him? What advice would I be giving him? Because that's the advice I need right now at that point. And once I started doing that, I was like, oh, this, it's understandable to be frustrated. It's understandable to be this and that and not happy with the situation at hand. You got to address that to even get to a point where you're happy with it, and, in those 2 years, I you do a lot of thinking because you're on a downtime a lot. You're this and that. You're not doing much. I wasn't working a job. I wasn't acting. I wasn't streaming. I spent a lot of time just in my room, just messing around. And when you get to thinking a lot, you're just like, you think too much of possibilities, this and that. What if I don't end up with a girl? What if I don't end up with this? And it comes to a point where you're like, well, why do I even think this? That's how it all started, because I wasn't happy. I was depressed. I was thinking these thoughts, and I'm like, well, why are we thinking? Let's just get to why first, and then when we get to why, then we can go to how to solve those whys. And it's not going to be very, very clear. It's very murky water. It's very, very gray. It's not a straight line. It's a something that you have to constantly address. Be very proactive about it. But if you do, I mean, I can say, man, like I'm like, I tell people like, yeah, I got out of that stuff. Thank God I did. I don't have that anxiety anymore. I can talk to people, and I can listen, do whatever basically. And I'll say two things. One, the first thing is that I had to be very nice to myself, very kind, very respectful. In the sense where, be kind to yourself. Don't talk to yourself like how, you wouldn't tell your brother or your sister if they had that problem going on, because it's very easy to be in this wheelchair and be like, man, you stupid, this, or you dumb leg, left leg, right toe, this and that. And really identify what you need that's healthy for you. The physical aspect, be real, like, being like very punctual with like your routine, like not skipping out on your meds that you need for your body, your diet, this and that, everything, and once you start respecting yourself, once you start being nice, this and that, it starts paving a path to where and you see it, you're like, man, I start feeling better. And the second thing is having a direction. Having a direction was huge into leading me to just being content with being Adrian. Because I think a lot of people in wheelchairs, what they, what a big problem for a lot of people in wheelchairs is that, you lose your job that you couldn't do before. I couldn't ride racehorses and that. You're stuck at home, not doing much. Well, what are you here for? What's your purpose? This and that. And when you start answering that question, when you start putting yourself into situations that could help yourself answer that question, you start being happy with who you are. I wasn't happy with Adrian until like I started really finding acting. Acting, I was like, oh man. And I had tried so many things. I had tried photography. I tried being a producer. I tried being a DJ. I tried writing music. Don't ever book me for a music event because it didn't work out,
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. You can do the acting. But when I found acting, it was tough, but it reminded me of like riding horses. It reminded me of like doing MMA. I was like, oh, this is it. Like, and it just sent me on a path. Like it gave me confidence. Like I tell everyone, like acting saved my life. It gave me confidence to talk to other people, because the thing with acting is that if you're going to be an actor and be a good one at that, you're going to have to do all types of scenes. And to be like, if you want to be like Denzel, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Cruise, whatever your favorite actor is, those guys are good at what they do because they've experienced it in real life. They've experienced and they're comfortable with it at that. And I remember I did a scene where I was like hitting on a girl in the office space, right? And kind of, I'd hit on girls before, but it was in that stage where the dating thing wasn't going, as well as I wanted it to, this and that. And my coach called, he's like, go out to a bar and just spend some time hitting on some chicks or something. That's basically what he said. He didn't say it like that, but he was just like, you need to spend time getting comfortable. I was like, I know what you need me to do. And so I did. I started going out or wherever, like sushi place, the grocery. No one was safe. No one was safe. Grocery store, like you could have been at the park with your kid. I would have been like, pretty, and so, I think acting like was the one thing that I really needed because, like I said, to be an actor, you have to have these experiences. So when you're acting it on camera, you're like, oh, I've done that before. I know what it feels like. I know the emotion behind it, this and that. So, yeah, the direction in general, it's. I think it's very, very it's necessary for people in wheelchairs, to be honest.
I think that you also do just a fantastic job around TPS too, because I always see you going up to new clients and the people, at different tables, different specialists, and kind of introducing yourself or making them feel welcome.
Oh, thank you.
So you do a good job of still doing that, and not only finding direction, but can you also talk about how being vulnerable maybe helped you in that aspect too? Going out there, because there's gonna be anxiety at first. There's gonna be nervous feelings. There's gonna be self-doubt, but how do you feel like addressing that vulnerability ended up giving you success in the long run as far as going out there?
Ooh, see, being vulnerable, I think it's something that, whoever you are, I'm pretty sure you guys experience times where you have to be vulnerable and like, I don't know about that one. I don't know if I want to do that. It's something everyone deals with, It's not anything unique to a wheelchair. And that's one of the things when I figured it out quickly, I was like, it's everyone's dealing with vulnerability. A lot of it comes from the person I used to be before, before the wheelchair. For the wheelchair, I was fearless. I could talk this and that, and and now I am too. But I wanted to be like Adrian before, you know, where I could just talk to whoever, this and that. Because growing up in the racetrack industry, you know, you're you know, you have to actively go get clients. You know, you're freelancing basically, so you have to put yourself out there. You know, my parents, you know, they made it a big thing when I was younger. Like, you got to go. No one's gonna give it to you. No one's gonna, you know, this and that. You got to go out and, you know, make an effort to get it. And growing up in that, watching my dad, watching my brother, watching my cousins, my uncles, all that. You know, when I started riding horses, I was already cool with everyone. I was already, hey, this and that. You know, I had great client relationships. You know, and when this happened, like, all that got stripped away, and I was like, I need that back. I need it back. I don't know how. I don't know, but I'm gonna get it. You know, and it was hard. It was really hard. It was really hard because, like I said, I spent a long time where I couldn't say more than 2 sentences, and I was like, and it bothered me. I would, and the reason I know the 2 sentences is because I would, like I said, I would count it, but I would mark like that little moment in time when it happened, and I'd be like, remember this so you can get away from that. You know, remember that so you can, you know, not, you know, move on to 3, move on to 4 sentences, 5, and then a whole paragraph, and then you're talking about whatever. I mean, man, there was this one time this lady was like, "My God, I got this dude dog." This, and I was like, I didn't know it was gonna go this way. Like, I was gonna ask you for your number, but now I don't know if I want it. You know, you know. But yeah, like for me, like I said, before when I was in a wheelchair, you know, I was very outgoing, this and that, and that's also one thing I think with people in with paralysis, that especially when the people that had an accident that didn't grow up with it, weren't born with it, you know, that had that big switch from their regular life to this life, is a lot of people yearn for their past life. You know, they yearn for a lot of stuff that they used to do. Like I said with the you know, outgoingness. I knew I would never be Adrian from before. It just wasn't possible. But I knew there was a lot of things that I could take from before and bring them out again, and, you know, revive it almost, and or even improve on it. You know, I consider myself an improved, you know, like version of Adrian before. You know, because I grabbed the things that I knew I could get from before, and you know, the things I could, I took them out, and, you know, now like I use it to my advantage. You know, like you said, around TPS, like I'm, you know, you guys got to put like speed limit signs for me at this point. You know, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's all something we're dealing with, and what's the worst that could happen? You know, I mean, I don't like saying cliche stuff like, what's the worst that can happen? You're not gonna die. Um, it's like I said before, it's one of those things that it's funny because you feel your body pushing yourself towards something like that. You know, you want to talk to that person, you want to this and that. And I don't know if it's because I grew up a daredevil, like fighting MMA, riding race horses, you know, this and that, where an ambulance is following you. But those scary situations are so exciting, you know. I bet you guys know. I mean, I like lifting for you, like for you guys, you know, like like you're doing a new PR, especially on like squat, you know, because squats scare me. Well, it used to scare me. Now I don't, you know. But squats, I'm like, man, if this thing's too heavy and I go down, like I'm gonna end up on TikTok or something. So yeah, it's being in that fire. It's being in that, you know, that scared, you know, space. You know, once you get more, and I'm still dealing with stuff like this. You know, it's funny because acting, man, it puts you in some spaces where you're like, oh man, I don't know if I want to, you know, get in that space. But, you know, but nothing great happens unless you do something scary. You got to do scary stuff if you really want to have something great happen. You know?
Yeah, it sounds like you just have a really good job of acceptance of new opportunities, right?
Yeah.
I think that, and also just embracing failure, you know, being somebody from martial arts, being somebody from a sport, being somebody who can have an acceptance for the failure, I think probably led to you having an acceptance of that new life.
Yeah.
That's why you celebrate the life day now, right?
Oh,
Some
man.
people say it's almost as important as a birthday or something.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You walk into that place like it's a birthday, you know. I'll invite you guys, man. You guys will come, and then like you'll see, like, man, this is his second birthday. He's just making an excuse to just have a party, you know. And why not, you know? Why not? Because you know, I remember the first day, I was like, it's bittersweet. You know, it's like this and that. But sometimes it doesn't even have to make sense. You know, I told my dad. You know, I remember I think the first life day, like I pissed myself at like 3 a.m. and I had to have my dad clean it up. And I was like, what a way to bring in a life day, huh? And he's like, no. He's like, don't put yourself down. Like, it's your life day. He's like, this is your day. I'm like, oh, okay. And like, I woke up that morning and I was like, but I was like, you know what? Like, if it does me no good to feel bad about it, even if it was a bad thing to happen, why not turn around and make it a big thing? And now people love it. People are like, when are we going to celebrate your life day? When are you going to this and that? I couldn't even, actually, last year I was too busy to do it. And I had like 10 people who were like, you didn't do your life day. You didn't do it. I was like, I was busy. And they're like, you have to celebrate your life. I'm like, my bad. I forgot. I didn't know you guys cared that much, but they do. So, you know, I'm around good people, thankfully.
So you got to celebrate extra this year.
I know. Yeah. I got to 2-time it on this one. Yeah. We're going to get a yacht or something at this point, you know?
Excited for it.
Yeah.
Something else that you've put yourself out there for a good amount is traveling, right?
Yes.
Traveling, I think, and then one of the other things you mentioned was a lot of concerts.
Mm-hmm.
You got any concert stories you want to share with us?
Do I? Oh man, did you guys hear about that? All right. So 6 months after my accident, I went to Hard Summer, which for people that don't know, is a music festival out here in San Bernardino, usually in Fontana or whatever. And I would go every year before. So when it came up, I can't remember if I think I had a friend ask me, they're like, hey man, like, you doing Hard Summer? I'm like, and you know, there's kind of a hasty question because they didn't know because of the wheelchair. And I was like, yeah, we're going to do it. Yeah. I don't know how we're going to do it, you know, this and that. And it was funny because it ended up just being me and one friend. And each day was with a different friend. So the first day I went with one friend, and the next day I went with a different friend, but it was just 2 of us, right? Which usually in the festival, you're with a lot of people. And I went with the first friend. It was good. It was fun. And then the second day, my friend called me in the morning. He's like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to make it. And this has just been when I like Travis Scott. I was a Travis Scott fan. And he was like, Travis Scott just dropped Astroworld. I'm like, I'm going to go like cut your tires if you don't come with me. Like, you're coming with me. All right, let me get back to you. He gets back to me in 10 minutes. He's like, all right, we're going. So we start getting ready. We go, and you know, we're at the music festival through the whole day. And you know, I was like 21, so we were just off. And you know, at the end, Travis was performing the last set. So what was funny is that my friend didn't really care much about Travis. He you know, he was like, I'll go, you know, obviously he was like, oh, I'll go to Travis with you because I was new, you know, 6 months being in a wheelchair. But, you know, it's funny when people are drunk, you know, they start, you know, wanting to do other than, you know, they're like really show what they want to do. And I was pretty sure he wanted to go to another set, but he was like, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And we're waiting, like Travis is coming on in 15 minutes. We're in the middle of a crowd. If you ever been to a music festival, you know, if like, oh, I'm going to the bathroom, like, I'll see you tomorrow, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, we were really drunk. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll be right here by the, you know, the totem pole right here, this and that. He goes to the bathroom, he never comes back. Travis starts playing. Travis concert was, you know, this was before the whole, you know, Astroworld thing happened where, you know, bad happened at his festival. So people were going crazy, man. So a mosh pit forms in front of me, right? And I had been in mosh pits before, this and that, but I stayed out of this one. I was just on the side, but he just formed in front of me. And one of the guys in the mosh pit bumps into me and flips me backwards. So I go backwards, this and that. These guys pick me up. And one of the guys that picked me up, he's like, hey, man, he's like, I'll make sure you don't get bumped into. I'm like, cool. Yeah, you're good. I'm like, don't worry. Like, I can take care of myself. And, you know, we're listening to the set, this and that. We're going crazy. And like 5 minutes after, he's like, hey, man, like, can you see? Because everyone's standing and I'm sitting in the crowd. And I couldn't see Travis. But I was like, oh, yeah, like, oh, I'm good. Like, I don't, you know, I'm just having a good time as it is right now, you know? And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, well, man, if you want me to lift you up, like we can. And I'm like, oh, no, you're good. You're good right now, you know, this and that. And every 5 minutes, he would come back and be like, hey, man, can you see? And I'm like, Still can't see, man. You need me to lift you up? I'm good. But he kept asking so many times to where like the 5th or 6th time I was like, fuck it, why not? And so he's like, yeah, you want us to lift you up? I'm like, yeah, sure. And immediately like 10 guys like built like you know, were like, and they lift me up. And as soon as they get me up, they're like, to the front. And I'm like, what do you mean to the front? Like, I just wanted to see Travis, you know? I was like, and so they start carrying me to the front. Like, I'm like, you know, like King Leonidas or something like that, you know, on a chariot or so whatever. And they start carrying me. And it gets to a point where the crowd's not opening. So they start crowd surfing me. They start passing me on to people. And at that point, I was like, there's no getting down because no one's going to listen to me. No one's going to be like, I'm like, hey, let me. And there was a couple times where I'm like, hey, man, let me down. I'm going to fall. But they didn't care. They were like, no, we're getting them to the front. So Travis is performing and eventually my legs are up here and my head's back down there. So I can't really see much what's going on. But I hear the music cut and he's like, I see you in the wheelchair, my boy. And I'm like, I'm the guy in the, like, I'm the wheelchair he's talking about. Like, so they started, he's like, get him to the front, get him to the front. Everyone started going crazy. Everyone started, and I like noticed the speed change. Like people were passing me like slow. And then as soon as Travis was like, get him to the front, I was like, hey, I'm going to get even more paralyzed after this. And, yeah, they got me to the front, got me off, and then Travis had like a huge bodyguard. This guy looked like he like ate 2 of you for lunch. And this guy, I've never seen strength like this, by the way. This guy wrapped his arms around my whole wheelchair. I still don't know how he did it. You got to take into account how drunk when this happened. And lifted me up onto the stage. And like the stage is like around like 5.5 feet tall or something like that. He just, I was just like, it sobered me up for a second. And I was on stage with Travis. And I thought you knew the story.
I've never heard that story.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, I thought, but and then he performed Pick Up the Phone. He let me like on the mic for a minute, this and that. I was rapping this and that. I was like, yo, buy my mixtape. And then he gave me a shirt. I still got my shirt in my closet and shit. Sometimes I wear it.
What's your new favorite shirt?
Huh?
New favorite shirt?
Yeah.
You got a replacement now.
If it's kind of big, man, I was like, man, you wear big shirts, and he was sweaty as hell. I was like, man, I had to wash that thing like 3 times because he was sweaty. He's hairier than you think. I was like, man, you don't like. I didn't know you were this hairy, and yeah, man, it was super cool. And like, I got to have like a big moment. He posted me on his Instagram. I think the post is still up there. The festival like recorded it, like the whole, like they had a compilation recording and then they had like the actual set recording, and I have both of them saved. And everyone like after that was like, what was funny is that, you remember my friend that said he was going to go to the bathroom. So, I got off the stage after Travis was done and the whole festival was over. And, I had like 20 missed calls because he was like, I lost my friend in the wheelchair. He got, this and that. And I called him and he's like, where did you go? And I'm like, I went on stage. I went on stage, and he's like, stop lying to me. Stop lying to me. You didn't know. I was like, no, trust me. I'm like, I did. And he's like, where are you going? He's like, come to my car. I'm like, yeah, I'll go to your car. So I went to the car where he was at in the parking lot. And he was like, bro, where did you go? And I'm like, dude, I was on stage. I had the shirt with me. I was like, I got the shirt. He's like, no, you bought that. And as soon as he said that, like 3 people came. They're like, you were the guy on stage with Travis. And I was like, yeah, I was. Yeah, I was, And that was 6 months after my accident. 6 months, like you're still considered healing. Like your spine's still considered healing, and the doctors told me, they're like, yeah, just take it easy. But I was like, no, I can't take it easy. When I take it easy, I go crazy. I gotta do stuff. So yeah, I was 6 months out, and really, honestly, that like that moment, like kind of like was like the shift when I really started like trying to live life again. Because before that, I'd go out with friends or I'd go here, this and that. But for the most part, I was kind of just chilling and not really wanting to do a lot. after that, I was like, no, like stuff can happen. You never know. So yeah, that's a Travis Scott story.
That's legendary. That's a legendary story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
It's such a cool story.
you know.
I think you have many other great stories, but something that we're focusing on at TPS right now is, going through challenges and overcoming obstacles.
Yeah.
And how you can change your path in a sense. You talk about it a little bit about something that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just goes back to what I said, like you know, the trial and error thing, and the thing about being in a wheelchair is that there's always something new, always something going on. There's always, I mean, you guys are here, you know, dealing with multiple people. You guys might know a lot more than I do about certain things, you know. You know, it comes a point. I mean, for me, it's kind of do or die, you know, because say like a UTI, you know, you don't really like pay attention to the things. Like if you don't pay attention to that thing, it's gonna come back and bite you in the you know where. You know, challenges are gonna come in every single thing you do. From like I said, when I was eating, I had to learn how to eat. I learned how to get dressed. I mean, even like I'm trying to think of like the simplest thing like you could do, like taking a bus. That's a challenge, you know. If you really, for me, the thing is that like I think, shout out to my dad for this too. You know, I was raised to do like expecting. It's funny, like you looked at me growing up, like I was a fat, short, chubby kid, not athletic. I had like a 13-minute mile or something like that. You know, my grades were all bad. Like, not, you know, not a lot of people expect a lot of me. But you know, in MMA, when I started doing MMA, when I started riding race horses, I was like, oh, I'm gonna show them. You know, I'm gonna this and that. I grew up an underdog. You know, and that underdog in me came out in the wheel. You know, when the accident happened, because I was like, no, I can't let my life be refined to just something, you know, simple, you know. At least I'm going to try, you know, something. And I'm not saying I'm Denzel Washington or I'm, you know, Mr. Beast or whatever, but, you know, I'm out here and I'm doing stuff and I'm doing more than like a lot of people that are not in wheelchairs, you know. If you want to have good things happen to you, you have to put yourself in scary situations. You have to. You know, and what's crazy is that I'm sure you guys know, like, after you cross a scary situation and it goes well, you feel like the man. You feel good. And I'm the type of person that, like, I don't mean to sound cocky, but like, you know, I'm like, if I'm gonna have bragging rights, I'm gonna go for it. You know, so more so for someone else to notice than myself. You know, so for someone else to be like, oh my god, you did. I was like, yeah, I did. Why do you think I did that half marathon the other day? You think you know, I've always wanted, but you didn't think it was nice when I came in and you guys were like, oh my god, he did. I was like, I know, some light.
Yeah, and applause when you came into the
Exactly. You know, it was like a red carpet. You know, I think that's one thing for me is that, you know, I'm very honest to myself. I'm very, you know, like honest in the fact where I'm like, yeah, like I like, you know, having a like, you know, people talk good about me and being impressed by the things that I do. I grew up like that. I grew up wanting that. And then when I got it, I was like, oh man, this is something else. You know, when I started fighting, and mind you, I was 5'2", you know, like I was whooping on dudes, you know, like nobody's business. I got whooped on too, but you know, like I was, you know, this and that. That was good. And then when the jockey thing happened, oh man, like, you know, like I said, I don't like tooting my own horn, but like when I started riding, I had people from Florida calling me to like agents for me to fly out and ride at the racetrack over there for them. From Florida, from New York, from Pennsylvania, from Arizona, San Francisco, and what's the other one? Not Vermont. Some other state that's unimportant. You know, but you know, when that happened, I was like, oh man, like I said, I didn't grow up really confident in myself. I didn't really grow up, you know, like not a lot of people had big expectations for me. And when I did that, I was like, whoa, like you can be big if you want to. And I want to be big, and I still do. You know, I remember a key moment before I was in a wheelchair. If you ever see my dad bring this up, man, please Before I was riding races, I would be in the mornings training the horses. And, I'd do my job. I was good, this and that, but it was plenty that I could work on too. I was a newer guy. There was guys out there with 20 years experience, 30 years, this and that. And what was funny is that my dad had just started riding again after he had lost. You can't be too heavy on a horse because it'll mess with their back. So he had lost weight to get on horses again to train them. And I remember this guy came in. Oh, that's the other state, Pennsylvania. He came in from Pennsylvania, and me being, outgoing, I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" I would always introduce myself because you never know who you're gonna meet. And he was there for about 2-3 weeks, and I would say hi to him every time I see him, and this and that. And there was one time I was dealing with a tough horse, coming off the racetrack, but I was so used to him at this point. I kind of had his habits down, this and that. I was like, I'm just used to him, And coming off the racetrack, he was standing there watching his horses train, but he started walking alongside me. He's like, "Hey, man," he's like, "Can I tell you something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" I thought I was in trouble. I was like, "Oh man, like, I don't know, what did I do?" And he's like, "You're the best rider out here." This guy that I just met from Pennsylvania, I was like, and I went back to the barn and I was like, "Dad, you know what this guy told me? I'm the best rider out here." And he's like, "I'm riding out there." He's like, "I'm the best rider." He was just messing with me, of course. But he was actually like generally like, "Oh man, like someone," and he was happy, and I was like, I never thought, like, when you hear someone say that, especially when they don't have to. Like I said, I'd met the guy like 3 weeks ago. I was like, "Oh man, like I'm doing something right." And I'm doing something like good, because that's an industry where like there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of guys with experience. There's a lot of, it's not something that's easily someone can call you the best at, And so when someone called me, I was like, "Whoa, that's a nice feeling. I want to do that again." So I think growing up with that, it's just, when the accident happened and I kind of wasn't doing much and I wasn't really happy with what was going on in my life, I was like, I need to change. And then when I realized, I was like, "Adrian, you're a guy that's designed to, you were programmed to do things that, like that are big, that are, get a lot of attention or whatever. And not for the attention, but for myself." Like I said, I tried photography, I tried music, I tried so many things. And I'll never do anything that I don't like, because it's just, I'm not interested in it, I will, I'll do it if I need to, but if it's out of my, voluntary this and that, then no. And when I found acting, I was like, man, I love this stuff. It's so good, it's so fun, and it's challenging, it's so hard. It's one of those things, again, it's the same thing where, like, if someone said, like, "You're the best actor I've seen," I'd be like, "Well, like, I didn't know," because there's a lot of good actors out there,
Yeah.
So yeah.
It sounds like you just do, like, honestly, a really good job of overcoming obstacles, but also, you can't be afraid to fail when you do overcome obstacles, right? And that's what it sounds like you do such a good job at, is not being afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And being able to just overcome obstacles that you faced, along the way of doing it.
Yeah.
So speaking on this topic, what is something that, like, a simple tip that you would give somebody that had just entered into the field of paralysis, somebody that's about to try to overcome a whole lot of obstacles?
Failure is necessary. Failure is if anything, it helps. The only time a failure is a true failure is if you learn nothing from it. That's all. That's the only time I'll consider something a failure. And I'll be really honest. Like, I still get scared of failure. Like, I think we're all scared of failure, right?
Absolutely.
I have an acting coach that little inside joke. I got an acting coach that he just pushes me hard, man, and he pushes everyone hard. And he's always, pushing me to, like, I remember he said the two biggest things an actor, like, that holds an actor back is failure, and I forgot what the other one was. But the failure one resonates with everyone, and that's one thing that I still work on a lot. I'll even be really honest. Like, I was supposed to make a short film last year, and it just didn't end up working out. Like, the people I was working with, had different stuff going on. When I started looking into it and I revised the script, I didn't like it anymore. I was like, I got really frustrated. I got in my head about it, and I just kind of scrapped it. And And like I told my acting coach about it, and I can tell, like I know, like he's still like, Adrian, you didn't make that movie you said you were gonna make. I was like, and now I'm like, no, you gotta, like, I went back to the script last week. I was like, all right, Adrian, like just go on with it and just see what happens. If you don't, you don't, but at least you tried. At least you could say you tried, you know? And it's also like he told me something. He's like, water things that you're willing to water. Maybe it's something that wasn't willing to water, but you won't know until you try. So you gotta get comfortable with failure, and failure is necessary in really anything. If the more you run from it, the more you do a disservice to yourself.
It's a great piece of advice, and I think that's a great spot to wrap it up. We really appreciate you coming on Pathways to Healing. The insight was amazing. All the stories, we're very grateful.
We appreciate you a lot, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys, man. Thank you guys. Let's get to the after party already, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did.
If you found today's episode to be valuable, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, and feel free to leave a review by clicking the link in the description below.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or topics you'd like for us to cover in upcoming episodes, you can go to our website under the tab Pathways to Healing and fill out the form.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another engaging conversation giving insight into the paralysis community.
Until then, keep inspiring, stay resilient, and roll on.
These are your hosts, Cody Norman
and Logan Frye,
signing off.